Welcome to violence.
But is it senseless violence?
I would say no. No, this movie.
But it will be soon because we're all going to get in the car and we're going to head up to Jewel, and there will be a big whomping. Okay.
Pennsylvania polka.
Just remember, Jewel, I'm 3 states away.
Yes, yes. I live in the mountains. I have a 12 gauge. Anyway, oh my god. We're here to review the movie Faster Pussycat. Kill. It made 1965. Really interesting film. Now this starts off with some belly dancers in a club.
No, they're go-go dancers, not belly dancers.
Sorry, go-go dancers.
See, I think the rest of us paid attention during the film.
They're aerobic go-go dancers, though, so we'll give him half a point for that.
Well, the go-go dancers, or what most modern people might refer to as strippers. But
okay, no, they wouldn't refer to them as strippers. There's a huge difference between belly dancers, go-go dancers, and strippers. And Joel, this is the second time you made that comment, and as someone who knows several belly dancers, that's insulting. I mean, that's not even Russ Meyer level sexism. That's just crude.
And my former landlady was a stripper, so one of her jobs.
I've been to a strip club. Anyway, with this movie, I really love the cinematography most of all. First of all, we get desert porn. Anytime there is desert, I'm there. Number two, racing in the desert isn't always the easiest thing to pull off on film, but when you do, it's fun. And they pull it off really, really well in this film. They also pull off great chase scene cinematography with the cars. The women, the way they drive these cars, the way the one male drives the car, the women, I would dare say this movie, whether the people who created the Fast and Furious will admit this or not, inspired the Fast and Furious in a lot of ways. The car chase sequences, the way this film is shot, the way some of the characters act in the franchise compared to the way the women and some of the men act in this movie. It's very, very gripping. Now, the main leader of these women is very psychotic, but she's also a very smart planner. I don't know if you want to call the woman in the dark hair other dark-haired woman her second in command. I mean it's a very gripping movie. This is also a movie that when a lot of Friday the 13th historians will tell you this is the reason they went with a woman killer in Friday the 13th was because of this movie.
Well, the resemblance between Jason's mother and Tura Satana is eerie.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't tell which was which.
Well, no, they weren't going for resemblance because when Friday the 13th was being made, they knew they wanted a house mom. Because initially they had approached the woman who played Alice in the Brady Bunch.
Ann B. Davis.
Yeah. They approached her to play the role of Mrs. Voorhees. But she said no. So they got something.
I do think that Tura Santana could have been an Eccentricities of a Nightingale, though. I really do.
And she would have been a heck of an Alice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Wow. Sam would have been a butcher of a whole other kind.
What to say, and the kids would be getting homicidal glares all day long.
Cindy would have been her protege.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and
Marsha would have been found in the closet, bound and gagged by the end of the first episode.
Yeah, and Mike Brady would have been put in this place.
Oh, definitely. He would have been outed immediately.
A fight between Tura Satana and Mike, not Robert Reed, but Mike Brady.
Yeah.
That's a concept.
Now, are we talking short hair Mike Brady or Afro Mike Brady?
Here's something weird about that. Because I'm up on my Bradyology, and when he gets on the plane to go to Hawaii, he has straight hair. When he gets off the plane, he's got the perm, which means he must have gotten it during a layover or something.
Yes. Or somebody was in training and said, "Hey, would you come
on the flight? In-flight perms.
Well, those were big in the 70s, you know.
If only. I'm sure there was some. If you look back, the crazy things they did with the 747 back in the 70s. These weird lounges. And
yeah, they would have had
spiral
room
staircases.
to do something like that in those days.
Easily, and the weird luxuries they had. I remember being on the last of some of those back in the late 80s and really hoping that air travel would stay that way, and we were betrayed.
We were ripped off, no doubt. Our generation did not get the amenities that the previous one did. That's for sure.
So we get some cool looking cars in this movie, guys. What did you think of those?
Rum rum.
They were kind. I mean, they were very cool looking cars, small cars. They did not give these ladies large, super muscle cars. Although the cars they had could certainly be souped up and so on. But yeah, a lot of that, eat my smoke stuff coming from Tura Satana with her gloves and everything, and wanting to get into fights with everybody, including her own second in command. But that was all part of this intense. The audience gets a sense of that through this intense competitiveness with the cars. Blowing around the Baja and doing all this thing, and then finally having some other object of derision and violence come into their scope, so that then they were all united against this guy and his girlfriend kind of thing. But I mean, it all sprung out of this car stuff that they were doing, screaming around the desert.
The girlfriend was a future Playboy playmate, Sue Bernard, and future wife of a Tony Award-winning playwright, Jason, a.k.a. The Exorcist, Miller.
Cool.
Yeah, she married Jason Miller. Good for you, Jason.
Absolutely. She's very young in this movie, though. I mean, she's
16.
Impossibly young in this movie. I mean, it's Russ Meyer going to his boundaries and crashing through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she does serve as a great victim, though. I mean, you feel sorry for her, and you kind of white knuckle for her.
She's sort of the hero of the movie.
She ends up becoming that. She's ostensibly helpless, but she starts to take agency for her own survival gradually.
In this sense, cars are like guns. I think it was either the Colt or the Remington that was referred to as the great equalizer in the Old West. And certainly that car, a white steed that she rides, is the great equalizer there.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Well, I think that happened in a different year. Never mind.
This is 1965, I think. This one.
No. What I was going to ask, but that true crime story happened in a different year. I'm pretty sure. Because
how would Vicky Winters have stacked up against Tura Satana?
Oh God.
Oh no.
Now, Joel, you're the big Vicky Winters advocate. She is who you see when you look in the mirror. She's your Dark Shadows characters. How would she have done?
When he doesn't see Caligula, yes.
Now, here's the thing. I think Vicky would have fought her. I don't think she would have been scared of her. Vicky wasn't afraid of a cat fight.
She's a New York chick.
Yeah, she's not afraid of a fight. There's a line from Victoria Winters. She got in a fight with a girl, a fist fight in Dark Shadows. So
the point is of no return, and you just reached it.
Yeah.
Imagine if Dan Curtis had cast Tura Satana as Victoria Winters, though.
Oh my God, that would have been a hell of a show.
Would have been a different show, radically different show. It would have been, Vicky figures everything out quickly and takes over the entire household.
Oh, I mean, that she would have had those gloves on to deal with Laura.
Mm-hmm. No.
Fireproof, baby.
She
No,
would have
what,
put Roger in his place in those first 10 episodes too, pretty quickly, I think. Maybe even
Yeah,
tossed Cliff.
and I'm thinking knife fight between Turtletana's Victoria and Maggie Evans.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Call
But
me a jerk, will you?
you know who could have matched her, who could have dealt with it? Burke Devlin.
Mm-hmm.
That's Burke Devlin's kind of babe.
Oh, talk about sparks flying right there. Yeah, absolutely.
no, I'd wondered for a moment, but like I said, I think the Churcom story is from another year. It's from a different year entirely.
Mhm.
That there was this young 16-year-old girl who was out with her friends, and she didn't return home. And initially, the girls had said, "Well, she went off in this car with these two men," and it turned out she didn't. The girls lied.
Mm.
The two girls involved drove off in a car chase. The one girl was with them. She was passenger, and she drove off. They went off with her up into the California mountains, and the cars stopped off near this trail, and the two girls got out the car and they started arguing. And the girl on the passenger side, she couldn't stand seeing her friends argue. And this sort of the way they take this girl sort of reminded me of the story. This is why I'm bringing it up.
I see that.
The girl gets out of the passenger car. Well, the girls who were fighting weren't really fighting; they were fake fighting, fake arguing. They take the girl out the car and they start dragging her back into the trail. They shave her head off. They shave her hair off, and they tie her hands behind her back and they shove her down. And the other girl who was with him, who the last thing she heard was a blood-curdling scream. They end up killing this girl by taking a log and placing it on her head. Her head goes into the water and they drown her to death. I don't know why this movie made me think of that while I was watching it.
Well, I mean, you're talking about sort of an anarchic, rage, murderous, stuff going on in this film, and this I can understand why that particular incident would remind you of that, because it does sound similar in terms of senselessness and why and all that sort of thing. Because the three women are definitely on some kind of a kicks mission, and it's not a pleasant, flowery one.
They're beautiful monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way they plot too is really sinister and just fun. Like,
oh yeah,
they kill the guy. Well, now we got to come up with this scheme for this girl who they're kidnapping. It's like,
yeah.
Oh my God!
Figure out how to kill her. Basically, the best way to do it and get rid of her. And so they decide to hang on to her for a while. Yeah, the whole thing is like sort of these evil machinations. We've got to go through this. We've got to figure this out. We've got to, to hell with the world, but we want to get away with it. We want to figure out a way to get away with it. And so that's what they end up doing.
Gordon, what did you think of the cars in this movie, dude?
I thought the cars are quite excellent. I mean, they're fast, they're speedy. In a way, cars, I think, I'm sure that Russ Meyer was like, for budget reasons, couldn't have his, the female characters use guns. And I think the cars are pretty much their weapons, well, except for the knife. And I think they're also used as a way to kind of really show how they are, how the three of them just don't care, because they're like going all over the place. They're not really, there's no sense of like doing like a timed race or a speed run. It's just, it's very, and the way they're shot too. I mean, I love car movies. I mean, I love the Fast and the Furious franchise, but basically it's just cars doing goofy shit and Vin Diesel punching people and talking about family. I mean, they're dumb, stupid movies, but I like dumb, stupid movies.
Yeah, and the same sense with the car, with these three women chasing each other around. It's sort of a thrill race. It's not a real race. They're just kind of, hey, let's see if we can do this hairpin turn stuff and get a cheap thrill out of it. Which why you have these really good cuts into the interior of the cars and their expressions and what they're doing, and then back outside of that. as well. The one thing that I thought was kind of strange about those interior cuts is what they did with the young man. It was he was kind of like hunched over more, while the others are like ha 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 and doing that sort of thing. I guess that was for contrast, but it was kind of inconsistent with what he was trying to accomplish. I think they were probably trying to show him as being somewhat trepidatious about the whole thing, but
He was the Joe Haskell.
yeah, he's he's the good guy that gets suckered into doing something stupid, basically. In this case, in the broadest sense, anyway. So,
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who stole this movie. I got to make sure I get his name right. Stuart Lancaster.
The old man.
Yeah, I mean, dude.
Put him in his pants, get a Democrat in office.
He's the male version of the Tura Santana kink that's going on this thing. He's the male energy, she's the female energy of this sort of anarchy, hatred, chaos.
And
he is in a wheeled vehicle also.
Yes, he is.
Well, I would dare say too, because this is a good number of years away from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I would dare say Stuart Lancaster's character is probably the inspiration for some of the Sawyer family members.
There's a lot of Faster Pussycat in Texas Chainsaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Family horror being one of that.
So, and a weird dinner scene.
Yes.
One of the weirdest dinner scenes out there.
Yeah, the dinner scene was it was not like this lighthearted thing. And you could feel it too.
You know what? You take the dinner scene from this and the dinner scene from Spider Baby, and you get the dinner scene from Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Pretty much.
I think that's my big issue with My Dinner with Andre. It should have been more like this dinner scene.
Okay.
You know what?
Here's building the flash of guns and knives.
Louis Malle. I have a strong feeling that Louis Malle and Andre Gregory and Wally Shawn, all three of them would have loved that.
Probably
they would have found that very funny.
Figure out a way to layer that in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
They're all three wacky guys.
Yes. And Wally Shawn is a good writer too. So he.
Yeah. Wally Shawn would have loved the dialogue in this.
Yeah.
Which is the real star.
Yeah.
Of the movie, Jewel. I mean, we can talk about the cars all you want.
It's weird because it goes from sort of standard mundane to this insane statements of reality and
oh yeah,
and
it's one of the most quotable movies ever made.
Yeah.
Jack Moran.
I think from a dialogue standpoint, it's very intense, but it's also very realistic. Though this is not a detective story, because sometimes noir is also about the language of the film. There's that here too. The language of the movie is very intense.
Yeah, it is. It goes from sly to confrontational and various other things that happen in noir films. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very intense. It's 1 minute they're calm, next minute they're yelling at each other, next minute they're wanting to kill each other. And then I really love the scene too. This is one of my favorite scenes of this movie, is when the blonde-haired woman is talking to the girl who they kidnapped, and she's just waiting for a moment to turn on him. And that right there is like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's so criminally good. What did you guys first see this movie?
It's been a long time, and I don't think I saw it on broadcast television either. I think it was a VHS or something.
Yeah, I think I kind of found it on a VHS in college and saw it, because I don't think I ever saw it on like, it may have been on something like Night Flight, but otherwise,
right.
I think it was more like, it's something you had to seek out. It wasn't like, Russ Meyer was not what you'd consider a name back then.
No, and certainly not standard even cable fare, years ago either, typically. some late night stuff, as you were mentioning, you might be able to catch something. Just the same way with his other movies, Vixen. A couple of his other films were just VHS stuff. So,
yeah. Patrick, when did you first see this movie?
I saw this movie in June of 1993. One of the three smartest men I've ever known, a guy named Tobin Fields, absolutely astonishingly brilliant writer and student of film and artist. A genuinely brilliant man. Tobin was a guy and is a guy who, when he has an interest, he will become one with it. He will descend into that interest with.
What happened?
got to freeze.
Hey, Patrick.
Got you frozen there, buddy.
You know, I think one of these days Patrick is just going to freeze and stay still and
Stay
expect
that
us to react, and then he's going to go boom.
It happens to all of us. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but the thing you have to keep in mind is that Patrick can turn the world on with his smile. He can take a nothing day and suddenly just
Make it
seem
all.
worthwhile.
Well, tell Patrick.
There
I
he
was
is.
so eager to get out of bed, I stepped on her face. So that's how it happened.
What were you saying, dude? Because you totally cut out there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know.
I know. And I just waited helplessly. Tobin had been in San Francisco for a while, where, you know, there were still revival theaters, and you got to see a lot of these movies on the big screen. Tobin is a man that, Jewel, you would have a really fascinating conversation about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls with. And no matter what happened, for as long as you lived, you would never
Forget it.
ever forget it. I can guarantee you. That would be a really, he's a big fan of a loved one too.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so my big brother's waiting. Tobin, God bless him, was into a big Russ Meyer kick at the time, and so he started with Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which just literally changed my life. It changed my view of art, and it changed the direction of my master's thesis, in fact, and that's absolutely true. And one of my three favorite directors, Russ Meyer, Busby Berkeley, and Billy Wilder. And so then he began to follow it up. He started with the very early stuff, the sort of the semi-roughies like Lorna, which is a wonderful, wonderful morality play, and my favorite, Mudhoney, which is another name of a band like Faster PussyCat.
And it is.
And is an amazing movie with the name Rope of Flesh. And I had talks about adapting Mudhoney for theater with Russ Meyer. He and I got to chat on the phone about that. And then he worked me up to Faster PussyCat. And in some ways, Lorna and Mudhoney set such a stark, bizarre kind of line that Faster PussyCat did not work as well for me at the time as I think it would have if it had just been the first of these films I had seen. But the more I watched it, the more I really grew to love it, and it really was very influential on me. This concept of these beautiful monsters, this concept of life and art being done. The writing is in black and white.
Yeah.
And it's a high contrast black and white. It's not.
It is. There's a
sort of
suddenness of response and change in mood and attitude and.
Yeah, it's not the nuanced kind of what chiaroscuro sort of black and white world of a guy like Raymond Chandler,
Right.
with lots of nuance and implication and so on.
It's Mickey Spillane, basically.
It's Mickey Spillane. Yeah, I mean it really is. It's like Mickey Spillane meets Al Cap, and just the relentlessly honest view of how Myers saw the universe. And I might have mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. Here's how you understand Russ Meyer. Russ Meyer was a combat photographer when he was a kid for Patton. And I believe some of the footage he shot was used in the movie Patton. He then went on to shoot for Playboy. You combine both of those aesthetics and you get these movies.
You get violent, beautiful monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie is really, really interesting. I do think what I love most too is when they're doing the dinner scene and the one girl's drinking. She's I'm all but passed out. I'm all but passed out. she passes out, and the girl runs away. When I first watched this on TCM, it came on at like 2 a.m. TCM would do Celebrity Host. And I got to give the devil his due, because I wouldn't have heard of this movie if it weren't for Rob Zombie. He was the one picking the movies.
It's a great filmmaker.
Yep.
And this was the last movie he had picked. They said you get 4 movies, and he picked one Ross Meyer movie, and I forget what else he picked. But this was
all the rest was Douglas Sirk.
I don't know, but this one I watched, and I was just having one of those sleepless nights that I couldn't sleep, and so I decided to watch it and check it out. And I'm thinking, this movie is crazy fun.
Great film.
And I just think from cinematography, from the story standpoint, they nail everything right. Because this movie is not predictable. It's not. It's the cars. I don't know how fast the cars are going, but the movie's at 100 miles an hour, just not slow down.
I just look at the way it starts.
Yeah.
I mean, even using the elements of film, the strange, recording lines there as the soundtrack as this sort of stark visual that's just kind of running through everything. Yeah, I think he had wanted to do motorcycles, but he had done a lot of motorcycles and things with one of his previous films, Motorcycle, which this is kind of a remake of.
It is. This screenplay, I understand, was originally written for men too, and then they changed it over to women.
Mm-hmm.
So
smart choice.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference in perception.
Of course, if they had been, I mean, I'm totally serious about this. If they had been predatory gay men, wow, what an interesting movie that would have been.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would have. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, it
would have had a much different energy.
Yes, it would have, but I think it would have also had that gradual cultural impact. Where later on it becomes more, well thought of as time goes on. But yeah, definitely. And at the time, it probably would have been in the same, drive-in category with Satan in High Heels or something like that. I mean,
Joel, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Should this movie have been more influential? Do you think?
Yeah, I do think it should have been more influential, but I think too, sometimes with movies, and I don't say this on my behalf, I think sometimes with movies, you get people just, it's just these 3 crazy girls who are going out killing, but it's way more than that. That's just it.
Yeah.
It's not just 3. I think, speaking from a generation that sometimes gets wrapped up in slashers, where you have a mindless killer, these aren't 3 mindless killers. They're very methodical. They're very calculating. They're very intelligent and smart. And it's easy to look at them and see how beautiful they are. But as I was once told by my mother, looks can be deceiving. And looks are deceiving. That's the thing. Looks are the most deceiving thing about this movie. From the cars to the people. Where, example, okay, the man in the wheelchair, the old man. You think, he seems harmless enough, but he's not. He's anything but. And the muscular man, he seems like just this this boy who has these maybe mental issues. But though he does, in a sense, but he's more than that. you figure, oh, he's just this misunderstood guy, and he's not. He's a killer.
Yes, and he's also there to
brutal
enact
murderer.
the old man's fantasies out. He's
Yeah.
there to enact the old man's sexual fantasies out.
Yeah.
So,
And then you have the one most unlikely hero of this movie, and that is the one son, and the girl they kidnapped. They're the two most least likely people to survive this situation, and yet do. And that's where this movie should be really influential at, when you're looking at not just horror, but suspense, in a sense, because this movie is very suspenseful as fast as it moves.
You're also looking at two different realities, too. You're looking at the chaos and anarchy and anger on the one side, and you're looking at what it's being acted on, which is the girl and the brother, the older brother. Right. And they're being sort of victimized throughout a lot of it, but then that sort of turns. So there is morality in this film.
Oh, Myers movies were always had a strong streak of morality, and not only was he just a moral guy. I mean, he was a real, red-blooded, normal guy in his own way. I have his 3-volume autobiography, which is insane, and but he also had to make them very moral, because the only way they could get this stuff passed around, he wasn't taking this to the MPAA. Not that there really was an MPAA at the time.
Right.
Yeah. He was doing this, largely on his own. Yeah. But judges would chase him out of town unless it had a socially redeeming message. Socially redeeming. So all of Myers' movies, and when you go to that narration that you loved so much at the end of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, that is Myers' parody of what he had been forced to do for years.
Right.
They could get away with anything. That's how Lorna and Mudhoney were. They're very moral films. They get away with anything, as long as at the end you were told why these people are bad and why you should not be like them.
Order is restored.
Yeah, order is restored. Yeah. And but there is kind of a beautiful symmetry to that, also. So I really respect that. But
yeah,
Joel,
I don't think it detracts from.
No, it adds to
this film. No.
And Joel, you're right that the fact that the normative characters in the Savage universe have some sort of core of decency.
Yeah.
That allows them to power through. Now, I would hope you also would appreciate that how slasher films would later pick up on just how tough Tura Satana is to kill in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
She keeps coming back.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that this woman is based on the poster. It says it's a superwoman. And I would dare say they're not meaning that as in superpower, that they have a literal superpower. No, she is literally the inspiration for the killer who never dies. I would dare say. And I don't know if they've ever given that film this credit, but they fucking should. Because it deserves it, number one. But two, with this film, it feels more grounded in reality still. Mm-hmm. I talk about this with Michael Myers from the original Halloween. He has a strong will to live. Just because you're a serial killer and a brutal murderer doesn't mean you have a strong will to live. Often, when you take a life, it makes you realize your own mortality in every way. More so because you're the one taking it. And she does. She realizes what mortality is. That's the thing about this movie, too, that no one talks about. These, more specifically, Leader Most, she knows what mortality is. She enjoys her own, and she enjoys taking others.
Yeah.
Just when that blonde turns her back and she takes that knife, you know what's coming. But it's like you're like, no, don't, and there's nothing you can fucking do. And that sort of helplessness makes this movie that much more fun too.
And
Jules,
like
I
any
have-
supervillain, she insists on enforcing her own reality. She will warp the reality of others to fit hers, even if it means killing them.
Jewel,
she's
I'm sorry.
no, she's trying to manipulate the she tries to get the blonde to manipulate the muscular man, and she herself tries to manipulate the one son.
Yes.
It doesn't work with either of them because the son with the muscles he knows the history of the older man with the train, where the older man tried to save a girl, because the older son explains that, which I love that little backstory that we get in this movie. Really smart. And with the older son, you see you see somebody who not only understands mortality, but he understands, hey, he even tells her, not everybody's you. There are decent people in this world. And I love that little right there, like in your face, because it's ballsy as hell.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Patrick. I'm sorry.
It is ballsy in your face. Jewel, do you have you ever seen Sound of Music?
Yes.
You know that song, Climb Every Mountain?
Yeah.
Climb every mountain. You know, do you think that's what Michael Myers is hearing in his mind as he's going through Halloween night? For him, it's a positive thing.
I think he's hearing Ballroom Blitz sometimes, though.
Maybe.
No,
maybe.
I think Michael Myers is hearing "It's a Small World After
But,
All."
no, but before the
Have you-
parade passes by, perhaps.
Hey, perhaps.
Have you?
Now, Joel, my other question. You talk about the triumph of sort of the normative character. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. All right, close your eyes. Now, I want you to imagine that you have, instead of the son, the normal son played by the actor who played him in the movie, it's Jimmy Stewart from Rear Window. And now, as I believe Varla, the Tourist Satanic character, it's Raymond Burr as Lars Thorwald in that outfit with the shirt and the gloves.
Keep your eyes closed, Joel. Keep your eyes closed.
Just, I really want you to picture it.
Yeah.
Can you see it? Can you see it?
He's seeing it. I can tell by the look on his
Can you
face.
see it? How it clings to him? The
Why?
black
Yeah.
shirt.
Plus, he's starting to get flushed, so I think something
He's got
more is going on.
but he's got that white hair and those glasses.
That's
Oh
right.
my god. Yeah, I want to turn on the lights now. Okay.
Okay,
Anyway,
you can open your eyes. So, Jewel, no time has passed.
yeah.
You may awaken.
Oh,
Now
my
I am
God.
looking like the guy in Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, let me ask you guys this, because where did they film this? Because I love the desert sequences and stuff.
It's Southern California.
Southern California.
I think so.
Yeah, it's where they film all your favorite desert
It's-
porn, Joel.
It's interior from the coast.
Well, not all.
I know they went east of Los Angeles to do it. There's a
Not-
couple really small kind of one horse to ghost towns out there.
But probably Barstow. A place like Barstow. Yeah. Trust
I know
me.
one of the towns they were in was a really teeny tiny, like there was almost nobody there, so that they could do a lot of the stuff.
Did they film any sequences in the Mojave Desert at all?
I
I
don't
don't
know
think
that
Russ
it was
would-
Mojave. I don't think it was that far south. No,
Russ wouldn't have gone that
Yeah.
far.
Okay.
He's on a budget.
he probably
Okay.
only went like 20 or 30 miles inland from LA,
And he-
because plenty of desert there.
He ran this thing like an army. And I
Yeah.
mean, you showed up when you were saying you went back to your room and there was no fooling around. He wanted to save it all for the movie,
Right.
except for Tourist Santa. She was not having any of that. And there were some great contests of wills between Russ and Tura.
Well,
And
that's
Turo
why I
won.
cast her, because she was a take no prisoners type of personality to begin with.
She's great. She's a marvelous
Good.
woman.
So, Joel, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I know you've talked about how you enjoy desert porn. Would it be fair to say that there's a figure who's like the Ron Jeremy of desert porn?
A figure that's like
John Ford.
Well, John Ford is, but I would also say Sergio Leone.
Okay.
The
Because
hedgehog.
both Leone doing his westerns in Spain and Italy and even Arizona, because he, with Once Upon a Time in the West, he had to go to, when they did what was it, Monument Valley, he had to go to the Navajo tribe and you got to get permission to film in the Indian reservation.
Sure.
He didn't just do them in Spain; he did them in sequence.
Yeah, you know, it's really. I do think, though, too, John Ford does deserve a lot of credit because he did film in the desert, and he did challenge a lot of other Western directors, not only of his time but later on, because a lot of Western directors would admit John Ford's the reason they would film in the desert, and he deserves that.
The original Monument Valley shot version of Streetcar Named Desire really confounded audiences at the time, and that's why they had to remake it the way that they did.
Put it in New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, it was
It's
set in New
originally
Orleans. They didn't
Streetcar
change
Named
the script.
Arapaho. So
They didn't change the script at all,
right.
but they left it in no, Jewel, they didn't do that. Monument Valley.
But
Very urban New Orleans script.
See,
you're right about John Ford. I mean, he was a location maven anyway. He shot all the way up and down the West Coast. He shot as far inland as Utah and Nevada.
Well, the one thing I learned about John Ford most was, and I got this from a friend of mine who deals with horses, that John Ford would shoot the horses from the back because horses get their power from the back of their legs,
And from the yellow sun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If they are Kryptonian.
Yeah, and it was John Ford who introduced Invictus to Catherine the Great.
Oh,
Invictus versus Incitatus.
Oh my God! Oh
He
my
also
God.
designed the harness that Catherine.
You know what kind of movie I'd like to see in the desert, honestly, and I hope they do.
No, Jewel, I don't think we do. Knowing where you're going.
Quiet. It's just getting good.
I would really like to see a Predator movie set in the desert. I'm not joking.
That's actually a
That's what I
reasonable
did with this.
envision.
That or maybe a slasher to where somebody is stalking people in small Western towns. That's something they could do.
If I made a Predator movie in the desert, his camouflage would be like a cactus, but it would sort of be like a cartoon cactus with the one part that goes down and the one part that goes, and it would get stuck. And so he'd have to kind of walk awkwardly, like he couldn't move his legs that much.
What? Saguaro Predator, disguised as a saguaro cactus. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Joel, what did you just show us? Is it a cross? Am I supposed to be, what? It's completely foggy.
Yeah,
I gotta take my blur off. Hold on.
You gotta take one off?
His pants.
Not my pants.
Yeah, really. He's got to do some video adjustment. Here he goes.
This is
Okay.
It's
Ghost
of the Badlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a guy who needs to be reading some Joe Lansdale.
Speaking of Badlands or desert horror films, stalker films, whatever you want to call it, have you seen the Wolf Creek films? Jewel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are kind of that genre.
Tell me all about them. What are they?
Wolf Creek films, they're Australian. It's based on a true story of a serial killer that used to be out in, I think, Queensland. And he drove around in his junk collecting truck, and he would, every once in a while, get a hold of somebody and torture and murder them.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he was like, "Good day, mate," and he sees this big burly guy, and he looks, he's a typical Australian outback ruffian kind of guy. And
to me,
this is what he does.
I had a vision of a charming but rough, knife wielding outback ruffian who fathers a son who ruins the Dark Shadows franchise for 10 years. AKA PJ Hogan, the director of the 2004 pilot, son of Paul Hogan.
No, that was that was
PJ, you got to lay off the Argento films, okay? You know,
the lurid colors.
No.
The lurid colors. Yeah, absolutely. The fog, the red fog over
Jello salad.
Yeah. Jesus.
An unfinished product.
It was an abortion before it was even, once they changed directors, it was destined to be an abortion. It really was.
I more judge that thing on potential than anything else because
potential was
can't
great.
judge anything else.
Yeah.
Potential was great, but every flaw that people cite
it's there.
has PJ Hogan's signature right on
It's
it.
there.
That's right.
And remember, people, the best way to enjoy the 2004 pilot, as a great man once said, watch it in black and white.
Black and white.
There you go.
It works like a universal horror film, but yeah, PJ, no Jello. Dark Shadows and Jello do not mix. There's no room for Jello in Dark Shadows.
I give this movie a 10, guys. What's you guys' favorite scene?
Dinner scene.
Yeah,
dinner scene.
I don't have a favorite scene. I like the camera shots. I really like the camera shots. The suddenness of it that matches the sort of the black and white dialogue that you were talking about before, because it does.
And one of the subtle things with the camera work is that the camera never moves.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
I find one pan, one track, nothing.
Not even a shoulder cam or any of that sort of thing.
It's all done in the editing bay. And Meyer, think about it, and because he was a guy who did not want to waste money.
No.
So talk about Hitchcock having everything meticulously planned. Hitchcock's an amateur next to Russ.
Right.
Russ really had it planned.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was of that generation that, like Corman, that really could do a lot with a little, a small budget, and did.
Digital would have ruined those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
In their early days, because they just could have shot anything.
It would. The creativity that they had was, and this is philosophically true for a lot of people that are creative, is you create within limitations. You create within a structure that's given. What are you given? Okay, how much can I do with this? And a lot of really genius ideas come out of that sort of limitation sometimes. And, Myers, Corman, several other of the, some of the Zarkov films, the various other things that had limited budgets, but were really kind of lavish in their imaginativeness, I guess, So, yeah, this film definitely scores.
Gordon?
Yeah, I think just a reminder that, AI prompts are not limitations. Like low budgets and being able to stretch your talents is a limitation.
Yes.
And as a side note, for all of you who are like, hey, I made a whole bunch of money by creating content from AI, you're a hack.
Right.
Russ Meyer is not a hack. Russ Meyer's heart and soul is in this movie. As well as some other organs that I'm not going to. Yeah.
And the technology is labor intensive, so you have to commit to something. You have to say, this is the way we're going to do it, And I'm going to do it 14 ways and then pick the best one. You can't do that. Can't do that.
Yeah.
So what have you done today, Joel?
I did a lot of writing today and still felt like I got nothing done.
That'll happen with writing. That will happen.
Well, I got 3 stories up on my blog at the same time. So. Oh my god! But what do you guys give this? 1 out of 10.
10.
Full turgid 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a straight 20. Go watch this movie. It's just a lot of fun, and I think from a psychology standpoint, what you have to sort of close this out, you have this kid, the muscular boy who you talk about, he's living out his father's fantasies, but he also knows his father's haunts and how his father, what happened to his dad, because his dad had talked about it. Even the oldest son says, I'm tired of feeling pity for you. You've changed. You know, he realizes his dad is not the person he once was, or maybe he never was. Who knows? I think this movie does show, yes, there's evil in this world, but there's also a choice to be good too. And that's another thing this film doesn't get credit for too. For a movie, it's a great piece by us. It is. So, guys, is there anything you want to add before we go?
Joel, thank you. This was terrific. I was glad we got to do this.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Let's see. Can we do Wednesday? Sorry, I know it's a long ways off.
What would you like to do?
We'll do I, Claudius. We'll do I, Claudius. I know it's a ways off, so sorry for the break a bit, but I got some stuff to do Monday and Tuesday, and then I take the kids.
We all have lives that
we'll do that. But there's going to be some links in the description box, links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page, links to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Day Book About. Go buy that goddamn thing if you haven't already. It's beautiful, beautiful. If you want the historian of Dark Shadows, that is one Patrick McCray, my friends. Alan, go check out his channel, Call Sport After Dark. It is a lot of fun to watch. He's always showing off good, cool collectibles. When's your next video, dude?
Well, I got to tell you, I've been extremely busy lately, but I am in the planning stages of tearing apart a script and showing how it was torn apart by from read through to final read, how the editing process works. I've got a couple of copies of scripts, and one of them is 522, which is where Nicholas Blair is introduced, and there's a lot that they cut or altered in that. Some of it, you can presuppose some of the line changes were actor things that happen during taping, because that did frequently happen. You get paraphrasing, but there's whole sections of it that were actually either cut out or altered in some way, in a deliberate way. So that's kind of cool. So I'm hoping to do that sometime in the near future. So.
Cool. Guys, go check out Alan's channel, Calling Sport After Dark. Go pick up Patrick's book. Go buy some stuff for Gordon's Amazon page. Gentlemen, it is always a pleasure. Good night, guys.
Good night, all.
Good night.
And love.